This is NewYorkTimes.com. Biden's 17 executive orders and other directives in detail. The move aims to strengthen protection for young immigrants and the construction of President Donald Trump's border wall and a travel ban, and prioritize racial equality. President Biden signs executive orders during his first few minutes in the Oval Office Wednesday. Doug Mills, New York Times, January 20th, 2021, 6:42 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Washington. And 17 executive orders, memorandums, and proclamations signed hours after his inauguration. President Biden moved swiftly on Wednesday to dismantle Trump's administration policies his aides said have caused the greatest damage to our nation. Despite the inaugural address that called for unity and compromise, Mr. Biden's first action as president are sharply aimed at sweeping aside former President Donald Trump's pandemic response, reversing his environmental agenda, tearing down his anti-immigration policies, bolstering and teetering economical recovery, and restoring federal efforts to promote diversity. Here's a look at what the measures aim to accomplish on the pandemic. Mr. Biden has signed an executive order appointing Jeffrey D. Zients as official 19 response coordinator, who will report to the president in an effort to aggressively gear up the nation's response to the pandemic. The order also restores the directive for the global health, directorate for the global health security and biodefense at the National Security Council, a group Mr. Trump had disbanded. Though it is not a national mask mandate, which would most likely fall to a legal challenge, Mr. Biden is requiring social distancing and the wearing of masks on all federal properties and by all federal employees. He is also starting a 100-day masking challenge, urging all Americans to wear masks and state and local officials to implement public measures to prevent the spread of the virus. Mr. Biden is also reinstating ties with the World Health Organization, the WHO, after the Trump administration chose to withdraw the national membership and funding last year. Dr. Anthony S. Fauci will be the head of the U.S. delegation to the organization executive board and will jump into the role with a meeting this week on immigration. With an executive order, Mr. Biden has bolstered the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrival programs that protect from deportation immigrants brought to the United States as children, often called the Dreamers. Mr. Trump sought for years to end the program known as pretty much DACA. DACA, which is Deferred Action for Child Arrivals, DACA. The order is also calls on the Congress to enact legislation providing a permanent status and a path to citizenship for those immigrants. Another executive order revokes Trump's administration plan to exclude non-citizens from the census account, and another overturns a Trump executive order that pushes aggressive efforts to find and deport unauthorized immigrants. Yet another order blocks the deportation of the libertarians who have been living in the United States, and a blow to one of his predecessors' early actions to limit immigration. Mr. Biden has also ended the so-called Muslim ban, which blocked travel to the United States from several predominantly Muslim and African countries. Mr. Biden has directed the State Department to restart visa processing for individuals from the affected countries and to develop ways to address the harm caused to those who were prevented from coming to the United States because of the ban. Mr. Biden has also halted construction of Mr. Trump's border wall with Mexico. The order include an immediate termination of the national emergency declaration that allowed the Trump administration to redirect billions of dollars to the wall. It says the administration will begin a close review of the legality of the effort to divert federal money to fund the wall. On climate change, the chief among executive orders that begins to tackle the issue of climate change. Mr. Biden has signed a letter to re-enter the United States in the Paris Climate Accords, which it will officially rejoin 30 days from now. In 2019, Mr. Trump formally notified the UN that the United States would withdraw from the coalition of nearly 200 countries working to move away from the planet-warming fossil fuels like coal, oil, and natural gas. In addition, executive orders Mr. Biden began the reversal of the slew of the Trump administration environmental policies, including revoking the permit for the Keystone XL pipeline, reversing the rollbacks to the vehicle emission standards, undoing decisions to slash the size of several national monuments, enforcing a temporary moratorium on oil and natural gas leases in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. And we established a working group on the social cost of greenhouse gases, on racial and alphabet equality. Mr. Biden will end the Trump administration 1776 commission, which released a report on money that historians said distorted the role of slavery in the United States, among other history. Mr. Biden also revoked Mr. Trump's executive order limiting the ability of federal agencies, contractors, and other institutions to hold diversity and inclusion training. President-designated Susan E. Rice, who is the head of the Domestic Policy Council, as a leader of a robust intricacy effort requiring all federal agencies to make rooting out systemic racism central to their work. This order directs the agencies to review and report on equality in their ranks within 200 days. Report on equity in their ranks within 200 days, including a plan on how to remove barriers to opportunities and policies and programs. The order also moves to ensure Americans of all backgrounds have equal access to federal government resources, benefits, and services. It starts a data working group as well as a study of new methods to measure and assess federal equity and diversity efforts. Another executive order reinforces the Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 to require the federal government does not discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, a policy that reverses the action of Mr. Trump's administration on the economy. Mr. Biden is moving to extend a federal moratorium on eviction and has asked agencies, including the Agricultural, Veterans Affairs, Housing, and Urban Development departments to prolong a moratorium on foreclosures on federal guaranteed mortgages that was enacted in response to the CV pandemic. The extension all runs through at least the end of March. The president is also moving to continue a pause on the federal student loan interest and principal payments through the end of September, although progressive groups and some congressional Democrats have pushed Mr. Biden to go much further and cancel up to $50,000 in student debt per person. This relates to on government accountability. Following the steps of some of his predecessors, Mr. Biden has established ethic rules for those who serve in his administration that aims to restore and maintain trust in the government. He has ordered all the appointees in the executive branch to sign ethic pledge. Finally, Mr. Biden issued a freeze on all new regulations put in motion by his predecessors to give his administration time to evaluate which ones it wants to move forward. The memorandum is aimed at preventing the so-called midnight regulations policies pushed through by the lame duck president, unconstrained by electoral considerations. The fast pace often cuts short the opportunity for the public or industry to review the policies. That relates to that. It's NewYorkTimes.com. Shalom.